My name is Isla Carter. I used to think betrayal was something that came from the outside, a stranger, a chance encounter, a fleeting affair. I never expected it to come from the very home I had built with all my love, from the man I once believed was my life partner. One night, at 2:17 a.m., I got a text from an unknown number. "You're the draft, I'm the next chapter." Before I could even react, I found something worse. A hard drive hidden behind the medicine box, recording the truth over the years, inside my own home. Have you ever lived with someone, shared a bed, raised a child together, and had no idea you were being watched, lied to from the beginning? If you've ever had a moment of awakening like I did, leave a comment below. Don't forget to like and subscribe so we can walk through this story together. Because what I found after that was more brutal than betrayal itself. I wasn't born into wealth, nor did I carry grand ambitions into this marriage. I only had one thing, a full heart for the man I called my husband. Back in college, people saw me as a promising artist. My work was featured in a local exhibition, and someone even offered to sponsor my graduate studies. But when Tyler proposed, I put away my dreams, packed up my canvases and paints, and chose the safer path: become a middle school art teacher, get married, settle down, have children. "I want a real family," Tyler once said the night before our wedding. "You don't need to make a lot of money, just be home, take care of the kids, take care of me, that's enough." And I believed him. His eyes looked sincere back then. I loved that simple picture more than anything. At first, life felt like a warm movie. We bought a small house in the suburbs of Columbus, planted flowers by the porch, named every little pot. Tyler used to call me the keeper of the flame. I truly thought he appreciated me. But things started to change quietly, like a fever without symptoms. He slowly took over every decision I made. When I wanted to start a weekend painting class, he said, "What for? You're already too busy with the house, don't complicate things." When I wanted to keep one of my old paintings for a local community exhibit, he told me, "Putting that stuff on the walls makes the house look messy." When I stayed silent, he clicked his tongue. "Don't be ridiculous, you're too sensitive." I started to question my own feelings. Was I being too dreamy? Too unrealistic? Tyler still went to work, still hugged me every night, still bought me flowers on my birthday. Wasn't that enough? I tried to hold on to the little things. Until I lost our first child. We hadn't planned to have a baby, but when I found out I was pregnant, I cried from happiness. He looked at me and gave a faint smile, not a joyful one, but the kind that felt calculated. "Well, okay," he said. "As long as you stop teaching for a while." I thought he was being considerate, but then in the 12th week, I started bleeding and had to be rushed to the hospital. The doctor said it was a complication. I lost the baby that same afternoon. I remember Tyler's face clearly. He didn't cry. He didn't hold me. He only said one thing. "Maybe it's for the best." We weren't ready. I lay in that stark white hospital room, cold from the inside out. And he left early to make it to a client meeting. After that, Tyler changed completely. He began staying out more, coming home late or claiming weekend business trips. I asked, cried, even got angry, but everything got blamed on one thing. "You're unstable after the miscarriage. That's why everything seems like a problem to you." And I believed him. I believed I was the problem. But now, looking back at that audio between him and his mother, I finally understand. Tyler wasn't distant because of grief. He had already started a new life with someone else. And his mother? The woman who always looked at me with judgment, who called me that broke middle school teacher, was the one who told him to secretly transfer the house title to his name in case the girl goes nuts. I remember the first time I caught Marcia snooping through my budget notebook. She said, "A good wife knows how to save, not waste money on silly things like paints and crayons. Who do you think you are?" Tyler was right there. He said nothing. I swallowed the lump in my throat and smiled faintly. I understand. I did understand, but not then, not until later. When everything had already rotted from the inside. When the walls I once painted in hopeful colors became a prison of my own making. I used to think that when someone betrayed you, at the very least they'd feel a little guilty, Or maybe, if nothing else, a bit ashamed. But when I confronted Tyler in the kitchen, right after watching the first clips from that hard drive, he just stood there, calmly pouring coffee like I'd asked about the weather. "What are you even talking about?" Tyler raised an eyebrow. I placed my phone on the table and played the clip of Hannah kissing him in the living room, the very place where I used to keep the crib for the child who never came. He went silent for a few seconds, then sighed. "Isla, listen to me. That was a mistake. I didn't mean for it to go that far. She came into our house while I was in the hospital. And you call that not meaning for it to go far?" Tyler stepped closer, softening his tone. "You lost the baby, Isla. You pushed me away. You were grieving, but you didn't let me in. You don't understand how lonely I felt." "And your solution was a 22-year-old student?" I asked. "You're a grown man, Tyler, not some starving boy who'll take a crumb from anyone who offers." He shook his head, irritated. "Don't blow this out of proportion. Everyone makes mistakes sometimes." "Oh, really? What about the camera in our bedroom? The hard drive you hid in the medicine box? The audio recordings you planted in my studio?" Tyler's face went pale. "What are you talking about?" I placed the hard drive on the table. "Wanna watch? There's even a part where you and your mom talk about transferring my studio into her name and pretending I had mental health issues to make the paperwork easier." No more excuses, no more sweetness. Tyler reacted like it was someone else's criminal record. "You can't use this against me. That's private. You installed hidden cameras in our house, recorded me without consent. What law do you think is going to protect you?" He stood frozen, lips pressed tight, probably running calculations, figuring out an escape plan, counting how many files I might have backed up. He had no idea that during his late nights and client meetings, I had already recovered the entire hard drive, the one he encrypted. Thankfully, I had Monica. Monica, my best friend from college, was a senior IT specialist before switching to law school. When I texted her, "I need help," she didn't ask a thing. She said, "Send everything, now, and Isla, don't forgive him this time." That night, we stayed up. She used her own laptop, opened every file, time-stamped them, made backups. "Here it is," Monica said, handing me a nearly 6-minute clip. Tyler sat in the study. Across from him, Marcia in a dark green dress, hair pinned up. They had no idea they were being recorded. "You won't react fast enough," Marcia said, casually sipping tea. "Just make her seem unreliable. Tell the doctor she's been deeply depressed since the miscarriage. Hint that she's erratic, forgetful. Then I'll handle the rest." Tyler nodded, scrolling his phone. "The studio's still under her name, but if I get the papers back, if I do it right, she'll sign." My whole body went numb. Monica squeezed my shoulder. "This isn't just a divorce anymore, Isla. This is fraud, invasion of privacy, premeditated coercion." The next day, I cleaned up my studio, wiped down every frame, every brush jar, every box of color. I looked at the portrait I once painted of Tyler. Gentle smile, warm eyes, then quietly turned the canvas face down. That night, when Tyler came home, I was reading on the couch. He walked in and paused in front of me, eyes scanning. "Can we talk?" "Of course. But remember, from now on, everything is being recorded. Because I picked up that habit from you." Tyler had a particular talent playing the victim. The moment he realized I had the videos, he stopped arguing. He pivoted. Instead of fighting back, he began to retreat and act pitiful. Not to me, but to everyone else. Relatives, mutual friends, even my own parents. It only took me a few days to realize. The whispers behind my back were growing louder. "Isla's been acting weird lately, almost like she's obsessed. She hasn't been sleeping for months now, right?" Tyler said, "She sometimes screams in the middle of the night. Seems like she can't control her emotions." I heard it all from Monica. She quietly recorded a phone call between Tyler and his cousin Ryan. In it, Tyler laughed coldly. "As long as a few people believe Isla's losing it, the rest will fill in the blanks on their own. I'm someone who writes words for a living, who teaches students how to observe the nuances in a painting, and yet I didn't see I'd become a character in my husband's play. A supporting role, written to prop up his narrative of the man who suffered with a mentally unstable wife. Things became suffocating when my mother-in-law, Marcia, started showing up every morning without warning. She walked into the house as if she still owned the place. Veiled hat, bright red lipstick, clinging to an old Gucci purse, she said as she took off her coat. Tyler says you've been a little unwell. I'll be staying here for a few days until things improve. I didn't agree. But she didn't need my agreement. I tried locking the door. She called a locksmith to change the locks. So I unplugged the Wi-Fi. She brought her own mobile router. I locked my studio. She used a spare key Tyler had given her. Every morning, I'd wake to find her at the dining table, making tea, reading the paper, staring at me like she was waiting for an emotional explosion to confirm what she already believed. Once, I was chopping vegetables in the kitchen when she stood behind me and said, "You might want to consider seeing a doctor. You could be dealing with hormonal imbalance after the miscarriage and not even realize it." I set the knife down. "Are you actually trying to drive me insane?" She smiled. "No, I'm trying to save you from yourself." I turned away, throat tightening. I had imagined many painful scenarios, but never did I think I'd be monitored in my own home, with people waiting for me to collapse like it would be a satisfying conclusion. And then it happened. On a Monday morning, the principal at my school, Mrs. Robinson, called me into her office. Her face looked tense, apologetic. "Harry, I received an anonymous email from a parent claiming you displayed inappropriate behavior in class. There's even an audio clip of you crying loudly during a lesson, frightening the students. This is a misunderstanding. I've never—" Mrs. Robinson cut me off. "I understand, but the school board has requested that you take a leave while we investigate. For now, you're suspended from teaching." I held the letter, my hands trembling. As I walked out of her office, I felt my coworkers' eyes follow me. Cautious, pitying, curious. No one asked, no one said a word. That evening, Monica came over. I was sitting on the floor of my studio, surrounded by old documents and dusty brushes. She looked at me, didn't ask if I was okay. She simply said, I traced the IP address of the anonymous email. It came from a personal laptop logged into public Wi-Fi near the campus, but one part of it was sent from a private network. The device name was Hannah Mac Air. I closed my eyes. My throat tightened. She really did it. She didn't just sleep with your husband, she's trying to push you over the edge. I looked toward the stairs where my mother-in-law was upstairs. Somewhere across the city, Tyler was likely still spinning his tale of the overly sensitive wife. And somewhere in a college dorm, Hannah was continuing her life as if she were innocent. I walked over and lifted an old painting I hadn't touched in years. An unfinished oil canvas, a gray background and a few faded outlines. I'm not letting them write the rest of this script. Monica stepped forward, gently squeezed my shoulder. And this time, you're not alone. I never imagined I'd one day be sitting in my kitchen, highlighter in hand, poring over federal law, financial crimes, privacy rights, property fraud. But when you're pushed to the edge, you stop waiting for someone to save you. I texted Monica one simple line. Where do I start? She replied with 2 words. The money. From that moment, I stopped reacting on instinct. I sat still and watched. And in that terrifying silence, I began to see the patterns in the chaos I used to think was random. Monica called in a contact, a private investigator named Eric Dwyer, to meet me that weekend. He was the quiet type, silver hair, tall and lean, always wore gloves even though the weather was warm. What are you trying to find? He asked, his eyes sharp like a scalpel. I handed him a financial statement from Tyler's company that Monica had recovered from deleted emails. We used data recovery software on Tyler's old laptop to backtrack a list of permanently deleted files. On page 3 were several entries labeled personal scholarships, approved with an e-signature. The recipient listed as Hannah E. Wells. She's a senior literature major at the university Tyler used to attend, I said. I can get her scholarship records from the school office, but if you want to prove this was personal money, we need to connect the dots. I pressed my lips together. We have a backup of Tyler's secondary account, technically under another name but linked to the company. From there, funds were transferred to a digital wallet, and most of it was used to pay tuition, rent, and one bill for a prenatal checkup. Eric didn't even look up, just scribbled into his notepad. Got a copy of the ultrasound? Monica opened her laptop. Yes, She accidentally sent it to the school's email. I pulled it from the archives. On the screen was a black and white image, a tiny fetus like a comma floating between streaks of gray. In the corner, patient name, Hannah Elizabeth Wells, gestational age 12 weeks, date of exam 3 weeks ago. Does she have a boyfriend? Eric asked. I stayed silent. Monica answered for me. She used to. A student named Paul Gardner lived in the same dorm complex, but they broke up around February. After that, she started showing up more often around Tyler. Eric set down his laptop and clicked open a highlighter. Enough to open a fraud investigation. If Tyler's company issued the scholarship, but it was actually personal money for a private purpose, that's not only misuse of funds, it's a violation of business ethics. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. Outside it was lightly raining. Do we have enough to bring him down yet? I asked. Not yet, but if you're patient, I'll find something he can't deny. In the weeks that followed, I lived like a double agent. By day, I shared breakfast with my mother-in-law with a calm face, greeted Tyler with a faint smile, nodded when he said, "I think you're really starting to get better." By night, Monica and I met in the studio, updating a spreadsheet that tracked every dollar, every invoice. Every column was a crack Tyler didn't know was widening. I no longer cried when I saw pictures of Hannah. My hands didn't shake reading her texts to Tyler, one of which said, "I want my child to grow up in a real family, not like some bastard." I didn't move. I read the line again, slower this time, then circled it in red like sealing a truth I couldn't unsee. One Thursday evening, Monica came late. When she walked in, she didn't take off her coat. "I've got something new," she said, placing a file on the table. "Detailed report from Eric." I opened it. The paper was still warm. The first line read, "Wire transfer of $5,000 from Tyler's company, e-wallet, under alias Morgan Fields. Used at a baby furniture store." Next was a $2,800 receipt. Note, deposit for rental near campus. Then a printed email, "Hannah to the landlord," signed as Mrs. Wells Carter. I read it twice. She used his last name? Monica nodded, her gaze razor sharp. "I think she's the legal wife." Minutes passed in silence before I finally said the only thing that mattered. "It's time, let's start mapping." We pulled out blank sheets, listing every point of contact, names, dollar amounts, dates, purposes. A web-like diagram slowly emerged. At the center was Tyler Carter. And this time, I was holding the pen. I was drying my dad's arm after his physical therapy session when the nurse walked in, placed a bag of fruit on the table, and said gently, "A man was here asking about him all morning. I think he might be your husband?" I didn't need to ask the name. In this small-town hospital, only one man would have the nerve to play loving family in front of medical staff, after silently destroying me from the inside out. I stood up and walked into the hallway. Tyler was sitting at the end of the bench row, sleeves rolled up, holding a paper cup of coffee, his head slightly bowed like a man carrying too much. The moment he saw me, he stood abruptly, voice full of concern. "Isla?" "I came as soon as I heard. How is he? What did the doctor say?" "My father is slowly recovering. You don't need to worry." Tyler looked at me as if I'd said something shockingly cold. "I want to help. We're still family, right?" I didn't answer. I simply stepped aside to let him into the room. I followed quietly, and as Tyler leaned down to shake my father's hand, acting all gentle, I saw a flicker of tension in my father's eyes. He knew. Even in his weakened state, he hadn't forgotten all the times I called him sobbing, and he could do nothing but stay silent. Tyler chatted with the nurse, nodding through every small instruction, then turned back to me. "Is there anything I can do? Clean the house? Pick up your mom? Take care of the meals? Anything?" I studied his face for a long moment, then let out a quiet, bitter smile. "When did you become such a good man, Tyler?" He flinched. I didn't hide the sarcasm. Why should I? Tyler took a breath, his voice dropping. "I know I messed up. I won't deny that. But now, seeing you like this, seeing you care for your dad alone, I want to make things right. I don't want to lose you, Isla. I mean it." To an outsider, this might have looked like a remorseful husband trying to mend the pieces. But I knew better. This wasn't remorse. This was performance. I had placed a small recording device in the corner of my purse. Another copy sat beneath the seat in Tyler's car. Monica installed it when she borrowed his vehicle the day before. Tyler had no idea. He kept talking, voice earnest, fingers absent-mindedly brushing his shirt cuff. I know my mom crossed a line, interfered too much. I'll talk to her. I'll ask her to step back. We can start over, Isla. If you'll give me one chance. I tilted my head, voice soft as if truly considering it. A chance? Are you sure? I'll do anything. I'll prove it. I gently touched the hospital bed rail. Then you can start by being transparent with me. Show me the statements from the supplementary cards, company accounts, and e-wallets. Can you do that? That's complicated, Isla. You know I have investments, and if I pull money out at the wrong time, it loses value. I smiled. You said you'd do anything. His face flushed slightly, but he quickly returned to his polite facade. All right, I'll arrange it. As soon as possible. I'm trying to put my life in order. If you're really trying to fix something, start with honesty. Tyler left the hospital a bit later, not forgetting to leave behind a container of hot soup for Dad. The nurse thanked him. I gave a faint smile. I didn't believe a single drop of sweat on his forehead came from actual worry. That night I sent the full recording to Monica. She replied in under 3 minutes. That last line of his is enough to file for voluntary financial disclosure. If he denies it later, we can use the clip to challenge his statement. I sat in the living room with all the lights off. The darkness from the window stretched across the old rug where I used to kneel to scrub the floor every night. For years, I thought I was building a home. Now I understood. A home only exists when both people tend the flame. I'd only been burning myself to keep the illusion alive. Everything in the house had been carefully arranged. A vase of purple orchids on the long table, the ivory tablecloth my mother used when I was little. Traditional dishes I'd cooked all morning. The room was full, my parents, Uncle David and his wife Mrs. Robinson from the middle school, 2 art patrons who'd supported me since the community class days, and even Mr. and Mrs. Marcia, Tyler's parents. And of course, Tyler. He wore a dark blue shirt, sleeves neatly rolled, smiling and chatting like the picture of a perfect son-in-law. Hannah arrived 15 minutes late. She wore a beige knit dress, hand resting lightly on her belly, as if to make sure everyone noticed the life inside her. I greeted her with a polite smile and showed her to her seat like a gracious host. When the main course was served and glasses clinked for the first toast, I stood up at the table, holding a glass of deep red wine. I know Thanksgiving is about gratitude, I began, my voice light as wind skimming across the table. But this year I think I have more than that to share. Every eye turned to me. Tyler looked up, still smiling. But when I picked up the remote and walked toward the large TV, I saw his shoulders tense. I played the first video. The image was crisp. Hannah sitting at a cafe, Tyler across from her. Their voices were low, but the sound came through clearly from the hidden mic. Just sign here, it's only scholarship paperwork, has nothing to do with parental rights. But it says waives legal rights to the child. That's boilerplate, legally invalid unless you confirm it again after birth. You sure? I've taken care of everything, trust me. Hannah hesitated, then signed. In the living room, silence fell. Tyler shot up. That's enough, Isla. What are you trying to do? I turned to him, eyes steady. You said I was too sensitive, that I was imagining things. You created a story about a wife who'd lost control. But the truth is, you orchestrated it all. I nodded to Monica, standing by the sideboard. She stepped forward and opened a folder, handing copies to my father and Mrs. Robinson. These are documents for a property transfer filed in my name, submitted by Tyler to the bank 3 months ago to secure a business loan. I looked directly at my mother-in-law. Marcia, and here's a copy of paperwork under your name, with a forged signature, used to place a deposit on a southern land project, an investment worth $180,000. Her face went pale. I never signed anything. Monica flipped to the last page, pointing to the signature. This matches Isla's handwriting, spliced from her insurance files. The room went still. The older guests began whispering. Hannah stood abruptly, her face ghostly white. Said no one would ever find out, he said. You thought he'd keep his word? You thought you were the first woman he promised a child would have a family. Tyler gripped the chair arm, eyes bloodshot. You're destroying everything. No, Tyler, I'm revealing the truth. And you? Built all of this with your own hands. I turned to the investors. And if any of you still want to fund my art studio, I need to be clear. I've separated all accounts from Tyler, filed to legally amend ownership. I won't allow anyone to mistake him as part of this journey. Mr. Roberts, a seasoned investor, nodded. You did the right thing. You have our support. My father, still weak, stood up, his eyes bright for the first time in weeks. My daughter stayed silent for too long. Today she spoke, and no one gets to twist that voice ever again. Marcia stammered. But Hannah's pregnant. That's our grandchild. I cut her off coldly. Child born of lies deserves not to be raised in more of them. I nodded to Monica. She stepped forward and placed an envelope on the table. Inside is a preliminary DNA extract, not complete but sufficient to rule out one candidate, and Tyler, you are not the father of that child. The entire room shattered like breaking glass. Hannah burst into tears. Tyler collapsed into a chair as if the blood drained from his body. His mother covered her mouth, then glared at him, speechless. I stood still, quietly watching the chaos unfold. I didn't feel pain anymore. Only a calmness, like after a long storm. And more than anything, I felt the walls of this house, once a prison, had become the gallery, witnessing me take myself back. We sat across from each other in the attorney's office, on a gray afternoon in late December. The room was so silent I could hear the scratch of pen on paper, the rustle of Monica flipping through folders, and Tyler's steady breathing. Only it no longer carried confidence, just fatigue, and the slow realization that the choices he once called strategic were now bending his life toward the edge. This is the final agreement, Monica said, her tone calm but firm. My eyes stayed on the page, each clause clear, precise, and cold as winter's sunlight. Clause 1. Tyler Carter agrees to sign the divorce without condition and waives all claims to marital property. Clause 2. The studio, residential home, and personal vehicle are acknowledged as the legal sole property of Isla Carter and will not be divided. Clause 3. Tyler Carter agrees to forfeit all financial, custodial, or legal claims to any child identified by a third party as his biological offspring until confirmed by legal DNA testing. Once excluded, all obligations cease permanently. So you're not filing criminal charges? He asked, voice low, eyes wary. I looked up, not with the same steel as before. Only clarity. No more, no less. No, not yet. I don't need you in prison to be free. He blinked. Maybe. For a second he thought he'd won. But letting you walk away thinking you got away with it? That's what I won't allow. He froze. I continued. You have one choice. Sign this and disappear from my life cleanly. Or we go to court. And I won't present what's in these files. I'll include audio of you coercing people into signing documents, footage of personal spending from company accounts, and a list of Tyler Corp employees receiving stipends from undisclosed sources. I think the IRS would be very interested. Monica slid the pen toward him. Sign it. You know this is the kindest deal you'll ever get. Tyler gripped the pen, hand trembling slightly. I watched him sign each letter. His face grew paler with every stroke. Now that it's signed. Keep your word, he muttered. I smiled. I've never been the one who breaks promises. You've mistaken me for someone else. Monica collected the original, handed the copy to his attorney. She closed the file, as lightly as if she'd just finished a wedding cake order. Out in the hallway, Tyler slowed down, staring at me like he couldn't understand. Why didn't you make a bigger deal of it? You could have ruined me. You could have handed everything to the police. I turned back, calm. Because what you fear most isn't jail. It's being unmasked in front of the people who once believed you were good. I stopped at the elevator door. And as for what needed to be sent, it's already been sent. A few days ago, Monica forwarded all of Tyler's shady financial documents to the IRS, anonymously but with clear sourcing. At the same time, a copy went to the local newspaper, where a journalist, Claire Stevens, known for exposing money laundering in construction firms, was hunting for her next big story. Minutes after Tyler left the building, Monica showed me Claire's reply. "The files are solid. I'll verify with 3 more sources, but this is a bombshell. If it checks out, it's not his company getting frozen. It'll take down both real estate projects he's pushing." On the way home, I pulled over and grabbed a coffee from a small roadside shop. Cold wind slipped through my collar, but I didn't pull it closed. I let the chill sink into my hands, like a reminder, I'm still here. Clear. Steady enough to choose release over revenge. I don't need someone else to fall for me to rise, but if they trip on their own lies, that's not my fault. The following spring, I moved back into my old studio, the place that once held my youthful dreams before I gave them up for a house I thought would last. The red brick walls were still there. Water stains lingered on the ceiling. But I didn't rush to repaint. Something about those marks made me want to keep them. Reminders that even collapsed places can stand again, without hiding the cracks. The studio reopened with a new name, Light Between Curtains. It was a wordplay on the curtain between us, my first finished painting after everything fell apart, but also a promise. A sliver of light piercing through the curtains of someone's pain, showing them there's still a path forward. The first workshop had 5 women. They sat in silence at their blank canvases, no one speaking for the first 10 minutes. Then one drew a circle, another painted an empty chair. Slowly, trembling hands found their way back to color. Didn't tell them what to paint. I only left out water, brushes, napkins. The only thing I placed on the table was a small sign. No one here has to be good. Only honest. I painted too, no longer to prove I was an artist. I painted to quietly speak what couldn't be put into words. The first piece I completed after over a year was titled The Curtain Between Us. A large acrylic painting, no faces defined. 2 silhouettes faintly visible behind a pale white-gray curtain. The curtain reached the floor, delicate as early fog, splitting the canvas in half. No one steps out. But there's light behind it. I submitted it to the city's annual art exhibit without expecting much, but a week later I got a call from the curator. We want it as the centerpiece for the central gallery. I laughed like a kid who'd just made the school basketball team. And for a moment, I saw the eyes of 21-year-old Isla again. The girl who once gave everything up because she thought love was a destination, not a path. As I rebuilt my life, the outside world seemed to correct its course too. News of the IRS investigation and financial fraud at Tyler Corp appeared in the local paper's business section. The headline was simple: a business crumbles over what was hidden beneath the floorboards. The article didn't mention my name, but I recognized every detail. The IRS uncovered Tyler's use of sub-accounts and unregistered scholarships to extract cash from the company. The funds weren't just for Hannah. They were funneled through intermediaries into shady deals, mostly in real estate and speculative investments. Tyler was stripped of his executive authority for 3 years, sentenced to 2 years probation, financial monitoring, and community service. As for Hannah, I had no further contact. I only heard bits from Monica, who still kept in touch with the university that she gave birth. And just as we expected, the DNA results didn't match Tyler. Soon after, her parents cut off financial support and called the school, demanding she withdraw and return home. But Hannah vanished. No one knows where she is now. Only that her bank accounts were frozen and her phone disconnected. An old friend said she might be in another state, applying for jobs under a new name, living quietly. Each morning, I arrived at the studio early, opened the windows, let sunlight pour into the classroom. Some days 10 people showed up, other days only 3. But every day had one thing in common: a soft silence, shared by people learning to speak again through brushstrokes. One day, a young woman came in, wearing an oversized jacket, her hair smelling faintly of smoke, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't know how to paint, but I heard you could teach me how not to feel useless." I handed her a pencil. "I'm not here to teach you to paint. I'm here to sit beside you and paint with you." I took a seat and reached for a blank sheet of paper, and as the first line of graphite moved across the page, I knew. My life was starting over, not from a new place, but from within, from the rubble of everything that once collapsed. One late afternoon in April, with the last rays of sunlight slanting through the glass window, I was wiping down some old wooden frames in the studio storage, when I heard a soft knock on the door. A young woman stood at the threshold, maybe 20, dark hair hastily tied, wearing a faded hoodie from a local college. In her hand was a loosely clipped folder, a few corners bent. "Hi," she said softly, voice a little shaky. "I'm a psychology student. I heard about your art therapy workshop and I have a research paper I'd like to do about the rebuilding power of women after trauma." I smiled and invited her in. She walked carefully, as if afraid to disturb the quiet, her eyes scanning the room constantly. "I read a blog post once by a painter about a broken marriage. She was a victim of emotional abuse and manipulation. I'm not sure, but was that you?" I set down the wooden broom, wiped my hands on my apron, and walked toward the whiteboard by the window. She didn't speak. Her eyes flickered between curiosity and something closer to fear. I picked up a piece of chalk and wrote one sentence. "I used to be a victim, now I'm a witness." She froze for a few seconds. Then her eyes lit up like she had seen something she once hoped for but never quite believed was real. "Could I interview you?" she asked, her voice smaller now. "Not for the paper. Just so I can understand. I watched my mom stay silent for years. And I still don't know why she didn't leave sooner." I poured 2 cups of ginger tea and invited her to sit at the old wooden table, the one I used to sketch out workshop ideas. "I can't speak for your mother," I began, "but I know why I didn't leave. I believed that if I worked harder, held on longer, everything would return to what it once was. I feared that no one would take my side. He didn't leave bruises, but he made me feel invisible, too small to need, too quiet to matter." She looked down, hands gently clenched together. "People think betrayal is when someone goes off with someone else, but there's a quieter kind, the kind where the person who promised to protect you is the one who makes you question your own worth every single day." I took out a small print, a copy of The Curtain Between Us, and placed it in front of her. "Some curtains don't need to be pulled back, you just need to know you can walk through them." She didn't say a word for a while, then nodded. "I'd like to join the workshop if there's still space." "There's always space," I replied. "We don't count heads. We only need people who are ready to begin again." A week later, she returned, this time with a new notebook, a few tubes of cheap acrylic paint, and an expression that looked a little less lost. In class, she painted a window frame. Simple lines, nothing elaborate, but in the bottom corner of the canvas she drew a hand pulling back part of a curtain. Without a word, I touched the frame's edge, seeing not the painting, but a reflection of a journey I once thought was mine alone. A few days later, while I was mopping the studio floor, Monica walked in holding a thick envelope. "Letter from the city's Arts Council," she said, shaking it with mock drama. "Heard someone wants to bring your art therapy program to the statewide network." I looked at Monica and saw the pride in her eyes. No words were needed. I used to think what Tyler broke could never be fixed. But somehow, from that wreckage, I had built something else. Not a home for two, but a haven for anyone who had once lost faith in themselves. Sometimes betrayal doesn't destroy us. It only tears open a curtain and shows us that beyond the darkness there may still be light. Have you ever witnessed a woman step out of the shadows, not with noise or bitter revenge, but quietly, choosing to rebuild her life with bare hands and a heart once torn? I don't know what you think about Isla's choice, how she didn't seek revenge in the way everyone expected but chose truth, chose light, chose to keep walking instead of turning back to burn the past. If you've ever gone through a moment like that, or watched someone you love rebuild after devastation, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. Every woman in Isla's small studio carries a life story, and maybe your comment will be the first glimmer of light that helps someone walk through the curtain that's still keeping them from their next chapter. Don't forget to follow the channel for more moving stories about family, love, and the strength it takes to be reborn from what once felt hopeless.